to the one and only Tszyu.
G'day guys, how are we? Welcome to Talking Boxing. I'll just adjust my microphone there. It is Monday, February 19, 2024, and I hope you had a good weekend. If you're a Swiftie, I hope you're nice and recovered and refreshed. This is the Melbourne audience I'm talking about. 3 shows over the weekend, if you will, for, 288,000 people. So an average of 96,000 people to a concert. And they probably could have got another 96,000 on each night if they wanted to. So an unbelievable experience for all the Swifties in Melbourne. And I think she's just gone to Sydney. So all the best to all the fathers, partners, brothers, whatever it might be that have to take their female acquaintances along. Or you might want to go yourself. Either way, have fun. But big weekend. We had the UFC as well, of course. This is a boxing show, obviously. But I want to hear your thoughts about the UFC. Alex Volkanovski had the knockout loss, second consecutive loss, and also Robert Whittaker on the comeback trail. Also want to hear your opinions on the video I did last week. If you haven't seen it, it is the dream, not the dream fight. It is the talking point. Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, who had the better career. So that's probably had, I think it's had 2,100, 2,200, something like that views at the moment. As I said on my Instagram the other day, it's not like it's massive totals. I get that, but for our channel, it's not too bad. So about 2,200 views, a lot of back and forth. It's just really interesting. Again, I touched on my Instagram on the weekend that people out there, they just get so butthurt if you disagree with them. You know, and the amount of people that say, well, this is the way it is, end of story. It's like, no comment, it's end of story. So you can't go back at them. You can't have any. It's a little bit like the political situation at the moment, I suppose, depending on whether you're on the left or the right or the red versus blue, whatever the hell it might be these days. Similar thing. You just cannot speak to people with a different opinion on a civil type of level, I suppose you'd say. But it was pretty entertaining to look over the weekend. I think we had 60 comments or something on it, but most of them, it's interesting. I'll get to your comments there. Good to see Kyle and Big J in there. Well, I'll get to you guys in a minute. I'm sure there's a few others in there as well, but I'll just quickly touch on that. But it's interesting. The poll that I did was all Floyd Mayweather. 100% of people said that he had the better career than Manny. On the flip side, on the YouTube comments and probably social media comments as well, it was all Manny Pacquiao. But I'll just probably draw the line down the middle. I think it was more of a popularity vote rather than, I think, a logical vote. Now, I've got no dramas with anyone that says that Manny had the better career and back it up with facts. But there are a lot of people that said Manny had the better career simply because they hated Floyd. So if you're going to have an argument, let's have something to at least, argue against rather than just, I don't like Floyd, he's a wanker. Anyway, we'll get on with the show. If you haven't seen it, again, check out last week's episode. I think that's about it. I want to actually also hear your opinions on the Premier Boxing Series. Now, this was actually announced about an hour after we went off air last week. It's always the way. It's either this show or the weekly roundup. Something always breaks. And last week, that was it. It was a really odd time to break the news, I would have thought. It was probably about 10:30 at night from what I saw. And the Premier Boxing Series, Ace Boxing, 7+. I think I might have said 7, mate, but it's actually 7+. So mainstream TV, I know it's a secondary channel. However, free-to-air TV, is this going to be a game changer? Because we've got, obviously, No Limit with Fox, Main Event, and KO. You've got the new Icons Entertainment with Stan Sport, and obviously Tasman Fighters with DAZN. So, yeah, plenty of things going on. Let's get into the chat. Kyle, champion, how are you, mate? Evening, Jay. You don't want any of our women to win a title. do you? Now, I'm not quite sure what that's about, but I'm sure you guys will sort it out. Evening to you. Old mate BJ, there you go. He's back. I gave you a mention last week, BJ. BJ, I actually said, where is BJ? I think Jai McAllister was in the chat the last couple of weeks. I think he commented, and I thought he might have scared you off. But what do you got there, mate? It's good to have you watching the show again, too, I will say. I've heard that Tyson Lantry is injured and No Limit might need a replacement. Perfect op for me to send that little boy chump, Jai McAllister, into the ring, but he's still ducking. Now, I still don't know the beef between you two, but if Jai, if you're watching, feel free to comment there. But I didn't know about Tyson Lantry, Big J. Who was he supposed to fight? Nathaniel May. Well, let's hope that maybe they could get a better opponent for Nathaniel May. Now, again, no disrespect to Tyson Lantry, but I've said all along, I just don't think he's a main event fighter, especially when they have the resources they do. But that's old news now. I'm sure we'll touch on it as the weeks go by. But I hadn't heard that, Big J, so yeah, we'll keep an eye out for that. Ed Woodson. How are you, Ed? What do you got there, mate? Much respect to you, Lynden. Okay, I'm glad I subbed to your channel. Really appreciate that, Ed. We're just a little channel just trying to get our view out there, Ed. And it's great to have new people like yourself joining in every week. And we seem to get more views, more subscribers. Excuse me. I think we're up to about 900 at the moment, which is good. Obviously not massive in the scheme of things, but again, when I started this channel and I would have thought that we had 900 people that were interested in what I had to say, then I'd be more than over the moon with that. So let's hope we can continue to grow the channel. Big J, I don't like that Shanika Johnson is getting a shot against Nina Hughes for the WBA 118 title, but hopefully Hughes can give Johnson a hiding back to her OnlyFans page permanently. Big J, well, you've been away for a while and you've come out swinging. I'm just have to scroll down to see what Cole Champion has to say about this, because he's a bit of a champion of the women, if you excuse the pun, but I'm sure you guys will sort it out. Look, I was surprised somewhat, Big J, that Shanika Johnson got the opportunity based on the way it normally works with professional boxing. If you lose your world title, unless it's an immediate rematch for whether it's in the clauses of the contracts or it's controversial or whatever it might be, then that's probably a little bit different. But yeah, Shanika Johnson getting a shot, and actually she had the 122-pound title, so it'd actually go down to 118 and get an immediate shot. I think it's for the vacant title from memory, Big J, but I was surprised. At that. But on the flip side as well, having said what I just said, this is women's boxing. The depth is not really deep enough yet. Each year it grows and grows and grows, which is great for women's boxing and boxing as a whole. But just at the moment, the depth's not there. So I get that these sanctioning bodies want quality fighters fighting for the belts. And Shanika Johnson's obviously a former IBF 122-pound champion. So, but look, end of the day, BJ, you've been around long enough. I'm sure that you know the way it works with promoters and relationships with sanctioning bodies and all this sort of stuff. There's all sorts of things that go out, and the sanctioning bodies will always come out and have a nice little explanation about why this should happen and why that should happen. WBC are notorious for it. So, as I said, mate, I think you know just as well as I do that there's a few nudge, winks, or wink-winks that go on behind closed door with promoters and managers and sanctioning bodies. So, anyway, good on her. I think that's on the, of course, Kambosos Lomachenko card, which would be great. And I did hear the other day that Jason Maloney will fight Gabello on that card as well. So, yeah, 3 big world title fights should be great. Big J again. All right. Forgive my absence. Had to tackle a few bulls and wrestle a few crocs. All done now. Up in Queensland there, mate. Yep, you can have that, mate. All right. Well, looks we've got a few comments from Big J there. We'll keep rolling them out. Also, a recap from last year. How good was it to see Ebony Bridges lose her belt to the Japanese girl? The best thing was I didn't have to subscribe to her OnlyFans to watch her get pounded in the ring. Oh, geez, you haven't wasted any time, Big J. I shudder to think, I haven't gone down the comments there, but I shudder to think what Cole Champion's responding to this. But, look, all things aside, Big J, look, you know, I didn't actually see the fight live. I had to watch it on YouTube later because I think I was overseas when it was on. Look, from what I saw in the fight, I don't know whether it was she had an off night or the Japanese girl was just too good, or maybe Ebony Bridges is nowhere near as good as what everyone thought she was. My personal opinion of Ebony is that she's obviously her own best self-marketer, self-promoter. I'm not, well, actually, up until she beat Shannon, I must admit I didn't think she was probably at the world level. But her win over Shannon probably changed my mind and gave her a lot more respect in my eyes. But then to lose to the Japanese girl, I think had only lost a month or two before that, quite easily in her last fight. I can't remember who it was against, but I think it was a world title fight. And she looked very ordinary in that fight, did Ebony Bridges. Does it humble her? Does it, from what I've seen on social media lately, no, it hasn't. She's still got plenty to say. And look, that's just the ego of professional boxers, whether it be male or female these days, isn't it? That they lose a fight, especially they lose their title. They always put it down to a bad night. But let's see if she gets another shot. I've got no doubt that Ebony Bridges will be back and probably, like Shanika Johnson, will be in another world title fight very, very shortly. She's got too much appeal, too much draw power for Eddie. And I'll leave it to your imagination of what appeal and that is. But look, as I said, I think she'll get another shot very, very soon. What do we got there? Big J again. Geez, you got all these comments here. I'm going to have to give someone else a go in a minute there, mate. I think you've got on early and put on about 10 comments in there. Oi, boys. Sorry it's been a while. How good is boxing at the moment? Keithy is surely going to do himself a mischief against Tim, and hopefully Wilson gets up. Yeah, I think that Tim wins the fight, Big J. No doubt about that. But I think what we've also got to do for the average Australian boxing fan out there is just put it a little bit in perspective here. I know Keith. I know Tim's been built up as Superman, and no doubt about it. For me, he's the best 154-pound fighter in the world. That includes Charlo. So I've got no doubt that he will go on to great things. But I just think we have to, with Aussie fans, keep it real. Keith Thurman is a live dog in the fight. He's a very, very good fighter. I've got no doubt that Team Tszyu have given him the respect he deserves. But if you're not quite sure out there, if you're not really up to, if you're not a full-time boxing fan like most of us are, and you think this is just another person to be fed to Tim Tszyu, you'll stand corrected, because Keith Thurman is a former undisputed welterweight world champion. I know he hasn't fought for a couple of years. I know he's going up to 154, but I've got no doubt he gives Tim a very, very good fight. Do not underestimate Keith Thurman. He's had one loss against Manny Pacquiao, but he's also had wins over the likes of Sean Porter and Danny Garcia and a few other guys. So he can fight. So while I've got no doubt that Tim wins the fight, don't sleep on Keith Thurman. And as I said, I've got no doubt that Team Tszyu are taking him very seriously, as they should. But just for the fight fans out there, if you're not overly familiar with Keith Thurman, then, as I said, rest assured that he'll be in there giving Tim all he can handle. And Liam Wilson there should be great. Big J, really wrapped for him. He's probably flown under the radar a little bit at the moment because it's obviously the night before Tim's fight with Keith Thurman. But that's a big fight for him as well. Oscar Valdez. If he beats Oscar Valdez, who, again, if you're not familiar with him, former 2-time world champion. This guy is a quality fighter. Very, very, very good fighter. I know he didn't look great against Navarrete, but that is a tough fight for Liam Wilson. I actually jetted out today, which was great. I saw that. Liam and Ben Harrington jetted out today from Brisbane Airport, I think it was. So all the best to them. They've got, a 5-week lead into the fight. So good luck to them in the preparation over there. And I can't wait. I've got tickets to see that fight. I'm going over, obviously, for the weekend, and I think I'm really looking forward to that fight. Probably feel a little bit more sorry, to be honest. I know you don't, probably, Big J, but for Michael Zarafa, who's been completely lost in the mix. He's fighting for his first world title and barely had a mention. I know Main Event did the quick interview with him after the press conference with Thurman, but Michael's pretty much had to make do with the rounds of a lot of podcasters and YouTubers and that sort of stuff, which is a little bit of a shame. I did see, well, actually I mentioned it on the weekly roundup on Friday, that Tim probably couldn't help himself and made note that it's Michael Zarafa's biggest moment of his career, world title fight, and he's buried on Tim's undercard, which, look, even though Tim says he doesn't really think about Michael Zarafa, he couldn't resist himself to have a dig at Michael, and he's probably right to some extent. I do feel a little bit for Michael because he's just, as I said, he's been totally lost in this whole Tim Tszyu, even Liam Wilson thing that's been going on for that weekend. And we've got to remember that he's fighting for a world title on that card, and is a very realistic chance. So, yeah, so the rivalry still runs thick between those two, make no mistake about it. Anybody who thinks Tim is not going to cave Thurman's head is delusional. Well, I'm delusional. There you go, Big J. Thought Tim was past beating up, blowing up welterweights. I think this is a little bit different, Big J. I've got a feeling that Keith Thurman comes into the fight very, very heavy. From what I've heard, he might come in at maybe 165 or something like that. This fight's obviously at 155. But look, mate, I think well, I might be delusional, as you just said, Dan, but no, I think he gives Tim a good fight for probably 5 or 6 rounds, and I think Tim gets past him in the later in the fight. But I have no issues or saying that my opinion is that Keith Thurman gives Tim a very, very good fight. You got to remember too, Big J. We saw it a little bit in Tim's fight against Gorchet. You're over there. You're out of your own comfort zone. It's a main event. T-Mobile Arena. Keith Thurman's been in these big fights before in the States. He's totally relaxed with the whole thing. To him, this is not, in his mind, and probably a lot of boxing fans in the States, this is not a big fight for him. Now, we probably over here can't get our head around that because for us, it's a mammoth fight for Tszyu. But Keith Thurman's looking ahead in this fight. Now, as I said, I don't think he beats Tim at all. But you get the impression listening to him talk, and a lot of the boxing fans on the YouTube shows and whatever else over there, the fan sites, that see Tim as the underdog in this fight, which I know we just probably struggle to get our heads around over here. But, I think, as I said, mate, I think he is a good chance in the fight. Having said that, I think Tim wins going away at the end, or maybe even stops Keith. But, I don't subscribe to that, mate, that Tim's going to cave his head in. Well, easily anyway. We'll keep going. All right, I think we're almost to the end of Big J's comments here, and then we'll get into some of yours. Kyle, he says, Big J says to Kyle, not only and the OnlyFans models, no, we got Susie Q, Taylor, that's Robertson, I'm assuming, Jazzy Parr, Shannon O'Connell, Beck and Sky. We don't need Ebony or Johnson. Look, I think I wouldn't put Shanika Johnson in the category of Ebony Bridges because I really think Shanika Johnson is a very, very good fighter. I really do. I think she's a very, very quality and fighter and world-class fighter. I've never really thought that about Ebony, as I said, until she probably beat Shannon. But I'm with you there as far as, look, Susie Q, I think we could forget about Susie Q, Big J. I think we can put the Q in the rack with Susie. She's been a great fighter over the years, but looked very, very ordinary when she fought Shanika and hasn't fought since. So I'm not quite sure where she goes. And always been a big fan of Susie, but as I said, mate, I think she's pretty much done. Taylor Robinson about to fight for a version of this at the IBO, one of those titles. Jazzy Parr, really keen on Jasmine Parr. I think she's got a lot of talent as well. Shannon will be back soon. Let's see how far she can go. Beck's got probably a year to go, I think she said. And in my opinion, the number one female fighter in the country at the moment, Sky Nicholson. I think she's capable of anything. I think she'll win that WBC belt. And then who knows if she gets that shot at Serrano after that. Asbot, how you going there, mate? Gentlemen, good evening. Well, good evening to you too, Asbot. And I didn't actually mention it before. Hello also to the people that will be listening to this after the fact on Spotify. So if you struggle to watch the show every week, whether it be live or on YouTube, download it on Spotify and listen to it in the car, going to the gym, going to work, whatever it might be. And it's always a good hour and a half 2 hours our last few shows have been going. So you guys have got too much to say. All right, Mitch Cook. G'day, mate. I'm not sure we've had a comment from you for a while, but welcome to the show, mate. Hope you had a good weekend. Did you have any luck getting some more information regarding the Ben Mahoney situation? No, all I saw, Mitch, was that, look, I did hear a couple of things, but I probably can't say it because I think there's some legal type of things going on, so I don't want to comment on it about that on here. I'm sure he'll come out and spill the beans when he's ready. But I think last time we spoke, you brought up about Ben Mahoney. What's his situation? Why hasn't he been fighting? And I've got a feeling it's a little bit of maybe a tug of war between promoters and maybe Ben wanting to maybe get out of an agreement that he can't stay in. I'm not 100% sure. All I've heard are whispers. And as I said, mate, I'm not really going to talk about that on here because it's not really my business, and especially when there could be legal stuff happening. So if I do hear something that I can comment on, mate, I'll obviously say it on here. Swifty sucks, Pink rules. Well, I'll be honest with you, Big Joe, I'm not a Swifty myself. I won't say I love Pink, but I definitely agree with you that Pink, for me, is the superior artist, and she's been pretty much forgotten about over here. Now that Taylor's moved on, maybe the Pink might get a bit of airtime. She's been in Australia for a few weeks, and especially here in Melbourne, it's just been all Taylor Swift and nothing about Pink. But I've seen Pink in concert before, and she's a great entertainer. I don't necessarily agree with what she says politically, especially when she said that if you don't agree with her, stop listening to her music. I don't think that's the sort of thing that an artist, especially renowned like Pink is, should be saying when you alienate half of your supporter base. It's okay to have different opinions, but to say to half of your supporters or listeners or whatever the hell they are, fans, that if they don't agree with you politically, to stop listening to your music, that's a very, very immature thing to say, if you ask me. But all that aside, as an artist, I think Pink rules as well, mate. I think she's fantastic. And she can rock in concert too, I tell you. All right, Asbot, Robert Whittaker looks sharp, awesome counters. Yeah, I must admit, Asbot, for the first 2 rounds, I wasn't really sold on Robert. Look, the commentators were saying he was winning easily. The people on social media were saying he was winning easily. I actually thought it was a really, really close fight. I thought the other guy, I don't really know how the MMA is scored, so I probably can't comment on it properly, but probably judging it like I would boxing, I thought it was a very, very close fight, but for more reports, the people that would know, he won comfortably. Did that other guy, he was big. I'm not sure what they fought at. I'm probably thinking, what was it, welterweight or something like that. It's all different to boxing. I think it was, from what I worked out on the day, it might have been about 80 kilos, so about 175. That guy looked about 200. He was massive, big, strong. He had these whopping big thighs and looked a lot bigger than Robert Whittaker. So I thought Robert Whittaker did really well. I did think he boxed really well. And one thing I will say about the UFC that I watched, I didn't watch the whole card. I sort of just flicked back and forth because I think it was on 2:00 here in Victoria. So it was a little bit that sort of mid part of the day. So I had a few things to do, but I definitely watched the Aussies, of course. And I thought, an interesting thing for me was that it was the boxing element that won these fights. And I say all along, I know they all concentrate on different things all the time. And I've never really seen good or UFC fighters with really good boxing skills. But yesterday I saw a couple of them. Robert Whittaker was good. He boxed very, very well. I know he threw a few kicks in there. Wasn't worried about hitting the mat because that guy being big and strong, and obviously I think he was probably a black belt or whatever. I thought Robert Whittaker was very smart by keeping it stand upright, and he didn't let the other guy near him. I can't remember his name, guys. I just kept referring to him as that guy. But I thought Robert, did box really well. He did cop a couple and was a little bit blooded up. He copped the kick to the side of the head, which he did really well to stay up from, and luckily for him, the bell went. But I thought he boxed smart. From a boxing point of view, Asbot, I thought he did enough in the last round to win it, but I thought it was a little bit closer than what maybe a lot of other people did. But yeah, boxed a really good fight. And then you look at the main event, the Spaniard against Volkanovski, all boxing. The whole lot was boxing. I must admit, I was really surprised. I know Volkanovski probably does a little bit of boxing back here in Australia, but I think to me, and again, I'm just a UFC layman, so I don't really know much about it. I'll get it, and if there's nothing, it's Sunday, there's not much going on, so I'll always get it to watch it. But the Spaniard, I thought, with Volkanovski it looked like he was a pure boxer, more like foremost than anything else, and he threw a few kicks in there as well. And I was really surprised that Volkanovski tried to pretty much outbox him, because it was, as soon as that fight started, I thought, geez, Volkanovski's got to do something different. He's not going to outbox this guy, because you could see that was his strength. That was his strength in the contest. And Alex is probably good at everything overall, but this guy was like a boxing specialist. You can see that straight away. Weight over the front foot, nice high guard, good slips, good weaves, just had really good poise, balance. His punches, were nice and placed as well. He just had good technique, and that's why I wasn't surprised. You watch that first combination. I won't dwell on it too long, guys, because I know there's comments there. But if you look at what he did, he slipped Volkanovski's jab first, hit him with the right hand. You saw that Volk blocked the hook, But then he slipped outside again and then come over the top with that right, overhand right. I know they called it a right hook, but I think it was more of an overhand, short overhand right, and he didn't even see it coming. Because Volk had this habit of pulling out with his chin up in the air, and it's always a danger in the UFC, if you ask me, is that they don't have proper boxing technique, and that sometimes happens. And that's when you see them actually get knocked out, whether it be by a punch or a kick. They pull out with the chin up in the air. And I know we see it all the time in boxing, but obviously boxers are proficient at boxing. So, but that's what really surprised me yesterday, is that Volk tried to actually outbox him, and for me, it was blatantly obvious from the start he had no hope of outboxing this guy. To me, he looked like a boxer first. And if he hadn't thrown a few sort of kicks, well, it would have boxed exactly like a boxer did. And we've also seen it with, who's the other guy? Sean Strickland. Now, he beat, what was his name? Is it the Stylebender, the last guy, the Kiwi? What's his name? Adi Zenya, whatever his name is. He did it all by boxing. I don't think he actually threw a kick or an elbow or tried to take him down, and that's how he won the fight. Good boxing technique. And I think that might be, if these UFC guys, and I'm sure they watch each other and see what, they almost have a trend against each other, or what sort of, what's working at that time. I wouldn't be surprised if they see the trend in this, that to beat these really good, whether it be grapplers or kickers, whatever it might be, is to have really, really good boxing technique. And you can beat these guys simply by standing upright and having that good boxing balance and throwing good, stable punches. So that was just what I sort of took out of it as. But yeah, it wasn't a bad day of fights. Kyle, Tszyu and Shotgun are in their battle-worn 40s, dude. That's to Big J, I'm gathering. I'm just going to alter my camera there. There we go. A bit out of focus. All right. They should have a retirement match with each other and call it a day. Well, I actually put this on my Instagram. Might have been last week, Kyle, after I did speak to Shannon, and I hadn't had a chance to speak to her since she'd made the comeback call. And she was saying that she was having a lot of trouble getting opponents. She'll just fight anyone, anywhere, anytime. That's just always been her mantra. I did put a poll up. Is it time to actually have these two girls fight? They were supposed to fight, 8, 9 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, and it just never happened for various reasons. And they've had a bit of a long-going feud. I actually took both of these girls to the States in 2015. I had no idea about the background to them and the rivalry and the feud sort of between them. And I actually, when I was promoting, took both girls on and took both girls to the States. And it was a little bit tense at the start, because, again, I had no idea about the history. And I thought, oh, well, they're part of the stable. Let's go over for training camp. And it was a bit tense, although they were okay towards the end of it. But, yeah, but I'm with you, Kyle. I actually think they should have a retirement match against each other. Although, looking at what Shannon's been doing on social media, I mean, I know she's over 40 now, but she still looks like she's like 28. So I think she's got a little bit more in her. She did say that, unlike before the Ebony fight, her shoulder's 100%. She's raring to go. She's had a good break. She's been out of the ring for over 12 months now. So I think she's got a little bit more to offer. Susie, from what I saw in the Shanika Johnson fight, yeah, I think she might be done, Kyle. And all the best to her. She's been a legend in Aussie boxing, a pioneer in Aussie female boxing. Maybe she deserves a retirement fight, but I wouldn't mind seeing these girls fight. But I think Shotgun's probably got at least a couple of years left in her, if you ask me. Females are a little bit different to the males, Kyle. A lot of them, because they've come into the sport later, they don't probably get knocked around as much physically. So I think Shotgun has the ability to fight for at least another couple of years. Big J, Volk probably should have a rest, but if McAllister has the guts, I'll KO him quicker and worse than your Spaniard KO'd Volk. Mayweather is shit, Pac-Man all the way. Don't let that get in your way of judgment, though, Big J. End of the day, I said in the video that Mayweather, like it or not, went 50-0. Well, let's just say 49-0. Let's put the McGregor fight aside, but he was undefeated. Fought a lot of the same fighters as Pac-Man fought. I know he gets a lot of the pushback about when and where he fought the opponents, but I could only find a couple that I think meets that criteria. A lot of the fights maybe happened later, but he dominated them so much, I just don't think it would have mattered. Whether it be Pacquiao, whether it be Mosley, whether it be Cotto, I just thought he dominated them enough that it wouldn't have mattered when he fought him. But look, I went with Mayweather, Big J, and again, I'm not going to argue at all with anyone that has a differing opinion, but just don't let your personal opinion of Mayweather personally get in your way of your judgment. Well, the other points there, Volk should have a rest. He did look a bit tired, and the issue is Big J as well. That's 2 KOs in a row now. Once you get KO'd once, the first one was that I can't remember what that was about, but the one yesterday was obviously a head punch, and he was knocked out. My concern with Volk going forward is once you've actually been knocked out, not stopped, but knocked out, where he didn't really know where he was, and he would have taken a 10 count if he had counted. Your resistance goes. I'm just not sure where Volk goes from here. And look, I haven't followed him during his UFC career because up until probably the last 12 months or something, I've never really taken an interest in it at all. But by all reports, he's been a great featherweight champion. I think is at 145, I think it is. So if that's the case, he's been around a long time. I think from what I saw yesterday, I think he should probably retire, Big J. But I know you're a long time retired. Once you make the call, you're out. So I get it, but I'm with you. Maybe he should at least have a good rest. And Jai McAllister, let's see if he wants to reply to you, Big J. Shamrock 11, how are you, mate? Evening to you as well. There's Andy. G'day, mate. Welcome to the show. Big J, Susie and Shotgun should have a retirement match. No limit. Need to give the girls a proper send-off for both. Yep. Well, with all the fights they've sort of got planned at the moment, Big J, I reckon Susie and Shotgun will be the best fight out of all three of them. This is the 3 Aussie shows I'm talking about. Susie and Shotgun, for me, easily the best fight out of all those main events. So why not? And the thing is, it's not like either girl would need a hell of a lot of money. I mean, you got to remember, a lot of the guys' fights, they're flying people in from overseas. They've got to get visas and all these sorts of things for them. These girls, one's from Queensland, one's from Melbourne, put it on and away we go. I think it would be a great fight to put on. I think a lot of Aussie boxing fans would love to see this fight, even though they're well past 40 now. I think it'd be great, mate, and I think it'd be a fitting in for both of their careers, and who knows what might happen. Kyle, I have confirmation that Jai Patai will be fighting on the Fury Usyk card in May against Bridges. Well, I think that was always the case, wasn't it? Apparently, Jai suffered an injury as well, so this works perfectly for him. Yeah, I did hear that, Kyle, about Jai Patai, that he was actually injured before the cut of Fury, before the Usyk fight. I think it was always the case, though, wasn't it, Kyle, that fight would just simply be moved to the May 18 date along with Fury and Usyk, from what I heard. But if that wasn't the case, thanks for letting us know. But, yeah, look, it might be good for Jai to have a little break as well. He did, even though the other 2 fights he did quite easily, he still had 2 training camps. And when it's like anything, you have more wear and tear on the body. The more you're training, the more you're putting yourself under duress, you're always susceptible to injuries. So it's probably no coincidence that Jai had 2 very, very quick training camps. Well, this is his 3rd training camp. He's been out the ring for a long time, so I know he wants to make up the fights, but maybe it's not a bad thing that he's just been, the reins have been pulled a little bit on him just to pull him back and freshen him up. And I think we'll actually get a better version of Jai come May. But I suppose the other thing is that, when you're on a roll and you've got that fight fitness going and fight hardness, then that might balance it out. But I for one, think it's not a bad thing, especially if he did have an injury, that he waits until May 18 to get back in with Brutus. Can't wait for that fight. Can't wait for the whole card. Will it happen? That's the other thing we have to continually ask, because I'm still to be convinced, or even to the point, not sure whether you've seen it, they've actually got Filip Hrgović in reserve for Usyk. If Fury pulls out, he's going to be ready to go. I've got a feeling he might. Has he got a fight scheduled? I'm not sure he has, but I've got a feeling they'll have him. If he hasn't got a fight scheduled, they'll have him on the undercard. And if Fury, or probably Usyk, more so Fury, of course, has to pull out for any reason, Hrgović will be the one they'll substitute in there to take their place. And you see that a lot on these big cards. I'll have someone in the same division of an elite stature on the undercard. So if an injury happens in the main event, bang, they can whip him straight in. So that's the insurance policy at the moment, that Hrgović will be the reserve for Fury and Usyk. So regardless of what's happening, guys, May 18, we will get a fight. One of those, they'll either fight each other or one of them will fight Hrgovic. I think it was going to come down to that. I'm thinking we might have Usyk versus Hrgovic on May 18 if Fury pulls out. But look, you don't know. We're still, 3 months away? So lots can happen in that time. Andy, please take the time to smash that like button, folks. Yes, we've got about 35 people watching at the moment, guys. So hit the like. It does wonders for algorithms and all that sort of stuff. It's amazing how that algorithm thing works. I did... Just getting back to the Mayweather-Pacquiao video that I did, just because you get a bit of traction with overseas people. They're the ones that were mainly commenting on it. It's amazing. Obviously, the other people see it in their feed or their page, whatever it is, and away you go. And all of a sudden, you've got a full-on debate going either way. So it's amazing how it works. But, yep, hit the like button, guys. Very much appreciated. Shamrock 11 says Akuso and No Limit need each other. Paulie was fast-tracked for a title shot and is now fighting a guy whose first 15 fights were against guys who hadn't won a single fight. Yeah, I've said this right from the word go, Shamrock, that I was totally bewildered that Paulo Akuso left No Limit, especially for the reasons that were mentioned. Now, the thing that did come out was that Akuso wasn't happy sharing the limelight with the likes of Tszyu or both Tszyu brothers, I suppose, Liam Wilson and Sam Goodman, all these types of guys. But it just headlined his first card on No Limit. So I don't understand that. This is a guy that's had, 6 fights, I think it is. I did have 6 fights, 6-0. So he just come off headlining his first fight, a showcase fight against Reynold Quinlan that made him look pretty good and got some eyeballs on him, and he'd been on undercards of Tszyu and all these sorts of things. So I'm not sure what No Limit could have done any different for him. And as everyone knows, the last few weeks I've been very critical of No Limit. But in this instance, I thought they'd actually brought Paulo Akuso along really well. If anything, they'd probably given him a bit too much attention and a bit too much money spent on him a little bit early. So, yeah, I didn't really get that. But then I was waiting for the announcement after that. When it was said or announced that he was leaving No Limit, I was waiting for the next announcement to say that he'd signed with Matchroom or Top Rank or one of these types of promotional companies. But he'd signed with, is it Icons Entertainment. Now, I know they've got the Stan Sport streaming service, but like this guy, what's his name? I did have it here. Emmanuel Dunzo, so 35-7. Now, I might do that while we're going there, mate. I'll have a look at his record just quickly. I might bring you guys. So what date was it? It was the 23rd. Let's see if it's on BoxRec yet, and we'll have a quick look as we're going. March, a lot of fights going on. It's great at the moment. That is Condell Park, so that's not it. There's another one in DYRSL. Another one in Caloundra. Is that how you pronounce it? Caloundra. And then we've got Ipswich. So there's 4 shows on that night. That's crazy. I know. Another one in Gippsland. So 5 shows that night. Crazy. All right. I'm going to bring you guys into this. We'll have a quick look. If I can find my... where was it? If I can find the webcam. There it is. All right. So where is it there, Shamrocks? All right, so Emmanuel Dunzo. Let's go right to the bottom. All right, so, not looking good. Look at that, 0-1, 0-1, 0-1, 0-1, 0-3, 0-2, 0-6, 0-1, 0-6, 0-1, 0-1, 0-9, 0-6. All right, so what's that there? Let's have it. We'll count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 fights. You're right there, Shamrock. 15 fights, and not one of them had a win between them. So where's he? From Ghana. Okay, and then look at these other opponents, 7-5, 16 and 10, 6-6, 16. So they get a little bit better. There's one, although he did get KO'd. That was against Robin Krasicki, or is it Krasnicki, 40-3. All right, when was his last loss? He lost 3 in a row back in 17. He lost by decision, was stopped twice. So he's lost a few fights. He lost to Rocky Fielding. Oh, okay. Was KO'd by Beck Noma Gunbet and was KO'd by Uma Salamov. All right, so in last fought, had a KO win over Felix Menkentar. Yeah, all right, mate. Well, I wasn't really aware of that, but yeah, that's a good point. Oh, hang on, what's that? That's the Mayweather thing there. Hang on, there we go. Who had the better career? Just a reminder about that. Make sure you watch it. Yeah, look again, Shamrock. I must admit, I am surprised that he's done it, especially for the reasons that he gave. But do they need each other? Does No Limit need Paulo Alcuso? I'll tell you what, if I had a fighter that showed me the disrespect that Paulo Alcuso showed them, I don't think I'd be putting the welcome mat out anytime soon. I think they'd just move on, and they've just signed Matteo Tapia. Great signing from No Limit. So, all right. Andy says, need my hands at the moment, so just listening. That's fine, mate. No problems at all. All right. Kyle says, great lineup to kick off PBS. I'm just wondering if there is one more fighter to make the first card. Yeah, well, that announcement is February 21. So what's that on Wednesday? It's the 19th at the moment of this show being recorded or watched live, if you guys are doing it at the moment. So February 21 in Brisbane. The first event is March 27, which is a Wednesday night. So they obviously like the Wednesday night thing like No Limit do. I'm assuming that maybe the 7 mate want that as well. They'd probably have the weekends tied up. I think the football should be starting around that time, so I understand that they won't want to go against that. So it's not too bad an idea. And obviously the weekly boxing show as well. Who's going to be on that? Be interesting to see who they get. Look, I hope they do a little bit better than what Fox Sports do. Their lineup leaves a bit to be desired, if you ask me. But we'll see. But look, great initiative by everyone involved. And I'll tell you what, they've done very, very well to keep it under wraps. The Premier Boxing Series. I'm sure there would have been a lot of people that knew about it, but the people that I knew hadn't mentioned it, and I reckon they knew. And so Angelo has done a fantastic job of telling everyone to button the lips, because it was, as I said, I'm sure there were people in the know, some of the social media sites that knew, some of the media out there, but as they did a really good job of keeping it hush hush. It's interesting, isn't it? So the first one, I did see there was Taylor Robinson, there was Jalen Tate, there was Beck Hawker, I think, was in there. So look, just all those fighters on there right from the word go is a great card to have. So I can't wait for it. I really think it's great. And like, if you throw that in, not that Tasman's doing a lot with DAZN at the moment. Icons with the stand thing, I'm not quite sure that works, but I'm really looking forward to having Premier Boxing Series up against the No Limit model. Because I think just like when D&L events had the Fox contract as well before No Limit got it exclusively, they had the MBS, which is the National Boxing Series. So when that was happening, No Limit really upped their game, and that's when they really started to put quality shows together. Now they've had it their own way for the last 12 months. I think, as I said, I've been a little bit, or have been vocal about the standard slipping away. I've got a feeling now you might just see the standard go back up, because a lot of those, well, yeah, look, Angelo DiCarlo's been around a long time. He knows a lot of people in the know, a lot of promoters, fighters, managers, you name it. I've got a feeling he's going to have a very, very good stable. Now, is that good or bad for Aussie boxing that you've got two really good, strong stables with their own roster of fighters? We're not really going to have those quality matchups against each other. So that's probably the only downside. But again, it's no different to Top Rank, Golden Boy, PBC, any of those types of promoters. So I'm sure it'll just be our Australian version of that. Big J, Hughes and Johnson, both Lou DiBella fighters. Hughes is a champion at 118. Okay, yep, I wasn't quite sure whether she was the champion. I thought it might have been vacant, but anyway. But there you go, Big J. As I said, both Lou DiBella fighters. A bit of a phone call to the WBA. Hey, I got these two fighters. They're raring to go. WBA say, look, we whatever. Pay your sanctioning fee and away we go. And Lou DiBella, of course, Hall of Fame promoter. So they're not really going to turn him down, are they? I actually think it's not a bad fight, Big J. As I said earlier, the fact there's not a lot of depth in female boxing, well, not as deep as it's going to be in 5 or 10 years' time. I got no dramas with it. Asbop, speaking of the girls, any updates on Alicia Baumgardner? PED results a few months back. What's the consequences, if any? I think she was proven innocent, Asbot. I'm not quite sure how it all went down, but she was found not guilty. So I don't know what implication that has as far as her career goes, but it was swept under the carpet pretty quick. And from memory, I think there was a little bit of controversy about how it was done and all these sorts. I'm not sure. I'll have to go back and look. But as far as I know, as I said, I think she was found innocent and will be allowed to fight no problems. It's been a long time since she's been in the ring because of it. But that's as far as I know, mate. The other thing before we go on to, guys, actually I'll announce a bit later. On this Thursday night, we alternate the dream fights with the talking point. This week it's the dream fights. And if I get a chance later, we'll go through it. I forgot to mention at the start of the show. This week, we're going to do a Dream Fights special edition. It's going to be an Australian super card. So the current fighters in Australia, I don't care what promotional outfit they're with, by the way, but we're putting on a hypothetical all Aussie super card, and we're going to go through it on Thursday. So if we get a chance, I'll let you know who's going to be on the card, hypothetically that is, and all the terms, and we're going to go through it on Thursday and break down the winner, who wins and why. So just to be a little fun. And then what I might do after that down the track, we might do maybe a past versus present fight night as well, all Aussie card. And then we might even go and do an international version as well. But look out for that on Thursday. I'm going to do it live. The all Aussie Dream Fight super card. Current fighters, this is. So no past fighters, just all current fighters. Who are the best matchups in Australian boxing on the Ultimate Dream card. So we'll get to that if we can. All right, Mitch, with all the main promoters in Australia signing TV deals, does this push Eddie further away from hosting an event here in the near future? Still holding hope to see Sky win a world title at home. Mitch, to be honest with you, I'd be very surprised if Eddie Hearn bothers with Australia. We spoke about this last week, and I, for one, think that, well, Eddie's got... the fish he's got to fry are massive overseas. Why would he come to Australia? I get it before. It was a little bit of a holding pattern, I suppose, before No Limit were doing the thing, but they were the only ones, and he was just sort of trying to come in from the side and sort of look after his stable of fighters and have a bit of an alternative type of offer for Aussie boxing fans. But now, since then, you've had Tasman with DAZN. Now, they are linked with Eddie Hearn, by the way, so that's probably the only in he would have. But you've got Tasman with DAZN, as I said earlier, Icons with Stan, and of course No Limit. So with all he's got going overseas at the moment, whether it be the States, England, wherever it might be, Saudi Arabia, of course, he's got so much going on. Why would he worry about our little neck of the woods down here? I'd be staggered if he came back here, Mitch. I hope he does, but I don't think do we really need him at the moment? If maybe Tasman said they want to do a DAZN event here and put a fight on and put their fighters on, not that they've got a lot of fighters anymore. I think Dana Coolwell and Taylor Robinson and a few of the others and Isaac Harbin have obviously all gone, and I think they're more focusing on the managing side of things rather than promoting. Maybe if Eddie said, look, I haven't got time, but I want to get a Justice Honey in Australia or a Liam Paro, or we want to get Dempsey McKean back on track, of course, Sky Nicholson to fight for a world title. Maybe Eddie Hearn could do it in association with someone like Tasman and DAZN. But as far as coming out and doing his own full-blown show, I'd be really surprised. And I wouldn't blame him for saying, guys, I'm so busy. The guy never stops. And love him or hate him, you've got to respect him. Every day of the week, he's out there hustling. He's always doing something. He's probably the hardest working promoter in the game. So I'm just not sure whether we're high enough on his priorities. And not to mention the hurdles to go through with the streaming agreements, and up until now, I know, as I said, we've got the DAZN situation, but really with the main event situation and everything, why would he be bothered going through the dramas and jumping the hurdles to get an event here? It was a big event on main event pay-per-view or KO or whatever it might be. So, and DAZN's okay, but really, out of all of them, you want to be on main event. That's the channel. That's it. And KO by association, of course. So I'm just not sure he could be bothered with all the drama, to be honest, Mitch. All right, Kyle. I think Shanika got the title shot due to money. The undercard of Loma and Kambosos, I imagine Hughes jumped at the opportunity to fight Johnson as Hughes' voluntary fight. Yeah, lots of things go into it, Kyle. And look, the thing is, as well, is that obviously Lou DiBella is co-promoting the Kambosos-Lomachenko fight. So it's understandably wants to get his fighters on there. Shanika Johnson hasn't fought for, I think, over a year. I think it's been since she lost her title to Ellie Scottney. So, yeah, as I said before, Kyle, I haven't really got a big drama with it. We want Aussie talent on the card. We want big Aussie fights. And we had just Jason Maloney's fight will be great, of course, but if we just had other just 6, 8 rounders on there, I think people would be a little bit peeved over that as far as the quality goes. So why not put a fight on like that one, where it probably wouldn't cost a lot of fight in comparison to what the males would cost. So I got no dramas with it. All right, Big J. Shah Metcalf beat the Japanese girl who beat Bridges a month beforehand. Yeah, okay, thanks, mate. I forgot about that one. I just couldn't remember her name. Yep, exactly right, mate. Well, as Ebony Bridges got... This is the question I'll ask you now, with the risk of offending some of your Ebony Bridges fans out there. Does she have the ability to come back and fight and win a title against one of those really good English or American girls? I can't remember who she fought to win the belt. Who I know she got beat by Shannon Courtney. She was she lost conclusively in that one. I'm just going to bring it up here while we're going. Ebony Bridges. And this is not an Ebony Bridges pile-on tonight either, two guys. It was so she won. Actually, I'll bring you guys in. There you go. All right. Just quickly. So she beat Maria Cecilia Roman. Now, she was 16-5-1 with 0 knockouts. 0 knockouts. So, and yeah, so she'd been world title champion for a while. So I suppose I'm not going to bring Ebony down on that one, but there's some really good girls out there from America and England around those weights. I think she got the benefit, or the rub of the green on that one. But the Shannon O'Connell fight, that was her mandatory, and she did it in style, no doubt about that. But yeah, against Mayo Yoshida, yeah, she looked very, very average. So has she got the ability to come back and beat one of those quality English or American champions? And actually, having said that, I'm not even quite sure who are the champions. Let's have a look at the ratings just quickly. Where are we? We won't be too long on this guy. I'll just quickly have a look. Where are we? Is that actually, they don't have the females on here, do they? Anyway, we'll forget about that. All right, but yeah, be interesting to see, mate. I'll get out of that. I'll go back to there. There we go. Sam Munro, how you going, Sam? Welcome to the show. Saw an interview with Tszyu today where the interviewer said if he loses to Thurman, he will be stripped. Have you heard anything regarding that? Well, Sam, it used to be the case many years ago that if you lost a world title fight, or it just meant that you've lost a non-title fight. It meant nothing. These days, I think this was raised on here 2 or 3 weeks ago about this point, and I was a little bit unsure, but I did look into it afterwards as far as the rules go for the WBO, and I couldn't see where it just out and out said that if you lose a non-title fight, you're stripped. But with what we see at the moment with the sanctioning bodies is they can pretty much do what they want. So they could probably say, all right, Tim, you lost to Keith Thurman, then we've got no choice but to strip you. I think that's garbage. I think if it's a non-title fight, then it is a non-title fight. I get it when they have the rules with the scales that if you don't make weight on the day of the fight, you're immediately stripped, and that's a great rule. But if the other guy, the challenger, makes weight and wins, he is the champion, and I welcome that. But as far as this one goes, as I said, mate, I looked at the WBO rules and a few WBC as well, and I couldn't find in there that it said that if you lose a non-title fight that you're immediately stripped. So I've got a feeling it might just be up to the sanctioning body themselves. That'd be a bit rich, wouldn't it? If you lost a non-title fight and you got stripped. Yeah, I think we should go by the old rules where, if you lose a non-title fight, that's a reason why it's a non-title fight. There's no title on the line. So, maybe they could say, like the weigh-in situation, that the title, it's 154. If Tim wins, it's counted as a voluntary defence for Tim. But if Keith wins, he can't win the belt because he's not ranked in the division or hasn't fought at that weight before. So they could maybe do something similar. But as far as just losing a non-title fight and being stripped, I don't agree with it if that is the case, Sam. I'll do a little bit more diving into it, but last time I looked, mate, I couldn't find anything. So I'll see how we go. All right. Seems to be a few other names being floated for Matthias aside from Paro. Can you shed any light? Yeah. Well, he He wants Lopez. That's what he wants, is Lopez. Or Haney, obviously, but Haney's got a fight, coming up. I think what might happen, Sam, is that Lopez obviously just fought a week or two ago. He won't want a bar of Matias just yet, especially coming off that last performance. I reckon they might throw a few names around. Then you'll see Liam Paro as the last man standing, I would think. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Liam, but over there, he's not seen in the light we see him here. He's just that guy from Australia who looked good on that last card, but not overly rated, overly highly like we rate him here. And I, for one, rate him very highly. I think he gives Matias all he can handle as well. So that's what I reckon might happen, Sam, is that there'll be talk about fights with some of those other big guys. They won't eventuate. Eddie's going to want to have, get a bit of quality for his, or bang for buck, as they say, and he'll want someone. So why not, why not better than anyone like a Liam Paro, who's also an Eddie Hearn stable, who is marketable here in Australia. So good pay-per-view numbers, maybe. And that's a great fight. That really is. So that's what I think will happen, Sam. Big J spoke to Zerafa a fortnight ago. He'll be heading to the States at the end of the month. Okay. I hope the end of this month and not next month, because that's when the fight is. But, well, I'm glad you've spoken to him, Big J, because he doesn't seem to be getting a lot of love out there. And I do agree. I hadn't really given it much thought, but I do agree with what Tim said to some extent, that finally got his world title shot, and he's just been buried in the Tszyu, the Tszyu, won't call it a circus. What would you call it? The train, the Tszyu train. He's been pretty much run over by that and just been totally forgotten about. And as I said, I do feel for him, but I'll be there hoping he wins the belt. But it's going to be a tough fight. That's the other thing. Arizona Lara, I know a lot of people saying, oh, he's 40. Zerafa will smash him. This guy's a quality fighter. This is a guy that lost a very, very disputed decision to a peak Canelo. So he can fight, and even at 40 years of age, he's going to be very, very tough to beat. And I know people say he's been very inactive. Well, Michael Zerafa hasn't fought for over a year either. By the time they get in the ring, it'll be almost 18 months for Michael Zerafa. So going to be a tough fight. But, it's let's see what sort of attention that he gets in the lead up to it with a main event or whatever, give him a little bit more airtime. Cole says, the Matias Paro fight seems to be off. Okay, well, I got that wrong, didn't I? Eddie signed Paro versus Barboza for Queensland. Oh, okay, Eddie signed Paro versus Barboza for Queensland in April. Please, maybe bring Ammo Williams for Isaac Hardman. Cole, I'm not quite sure it's off. I know it did seem like it had cooled, and Liam had sort of been seen as maybe a last resort, whatever it might be, but who's Matias's? Well, what are the options for him? Like Paro is Eddie Hearn's fighter as well. He'll be under pressure to get Paro a title shot as well. I'm still to be convinced that fight doesn't happen. And as I said before, I think there'll be a lot of names maybe thrown around. Be a few names mentioned. But I just think at the end of the day, Liam, to me, just makes the most sense. And I think he's absolutely ripe to get that world title shot. And I think that fight is a really good first off fight for Matias under the Matchroom label. So, Ammo Williams for Isaac. Is that a bit too much for Isaac at this stage? He goes all right, Ammo Williams, but would be entertaining, no doubt about that. All right. Top Rank Ardo. G'day, mate. I'm not sure we've seen you on here before, but welcome to the show. Is the Mahoney versus Gabalo fight confirmed? Is it taking place on the undercard of Loma Cambosos? Well, all the noise points to that, Top Rank, that Jason Maloney will defend against Raymart Gabalo. And it makes sense when you think about it. Gabalo obviously is from the Philippines, so it's not that expensive to get him to Australia. Not that I know they worried too much about that at this level, but it's easy to get him here. The Philippines is, not that far from Australia. He's the number one challenger. Jason, and this is the other thing why it makes complete sense. Jason's last fight against Sanchez was a voluntary defense. Gabalo being the WBO number one is the mandatory. So obviously it's mandatory, voluntary, alternating. So it makes sense. So, but that seems to be the male Top Rank, as it will be Jason versus Gabalo on the Lomachenko Cambosos undercard. Reminder, do we still want to get a live panel going after the launch of the Premier Boxing Series? So this is after the first event, is it, Kyle? Because if it is, I did look into that, and that will be a negative because I'm heading away on the 26th. So I'm going on Tuesday, the 26th of March. So that'll be the day before that fight. But I do like the idea of having the panel situation. I really actually like, after these, maybe don't do it every week, but have an event type of thing like the Premier Boxing Series, or it might, maybe we'll do it with Joshua and Ngannou, that card. Because I think Justice Honey's on that card as well, to maybe do it either straight after or the following night, have a panel to discuss that particular event rather than doing it all the time every week. It might be a bit hard for everyone, especially me, but that might be something we can do, is a panel, as I said, straight after the fight would work well. I know that's a little bit hard sometimes on a Sunday or whatever it might be, because everyone's got things to do after, some brownie points to earn after sitting there watching boxing for 4 or 5 hours. So I get that, but we will do it at some stage. I think that seems to be the better fit. So we can have a rolling panel for an hour or so after, maybe a day after, for these shows. So we'll see how we go. But I haven't forgot about it, mate. But we just can't do that one because I'll be away. There's Zaki King. Canelo brought up old 160 Triple G. So he brought up old Triple G. Yep, Mel from 154. And now all I'm hearing is 160 Jamal or 147 Bud. Only legit 168 he fought in the past 3 fights. His rider, who Munguia KO'd. If no David in 2024, is Canelo a duck? Ooh, well, that's been the talk. We'll call you Zaki. Look, as far as all that goes, the Canelo 160, I don't subscribe to the old Triple G scenario. Maybe the third fight, yes, okay, you can maybe say that he made Triple G weight, but I think the first Triple G fight, I think you got to take your hat off to Canelo. Triple G was prime. I know he's probably getting on, but he was physically prime, in the prime of his career. And Canelo probably in the end didn't have any choice but to fight him, let's face it. But he did fight him, and whether you thought he won or not, I thought it was probably the right decision, the draw. But it was close enough. It probably could have gone either way. But I think I had it a draw. But I think for me that was prime. Backed it up. I thought he had a conclusive win over Triple G in the rematch and didn't muck around. He gave Triple G a rematch 12 months afterwards. And as I said, the third fight might be arguable whether he took his time. But I just think he had other bridges to cross at that stage. More names to tick off. He unified the 168 division. He'd beaten Triple G conclusively in the second fight. So I don't subscribe to the whole, he made him wait too long to get old. That's just my opinion, Zaki. Mel from 154. Yeah, I do to some extent. Yeah, I don't know. Well, that of course he was supposed to fight Jamal first, and then Jamal filled in for his brother. Yeah, it's probably arguable as well, Zaki, but it mightn't have been a lot of options. Although having said that, he has got Morel and Benavides and these types of guys at that weight, of course. And now Jamal if you saw the other day that Jamal Charlo has actually came out and said that he's had no contact with Canelo's management at all. Now, we're only a couple of months away from was it 2.5 months away from that fight? And he's heard nothing. So that almost puts a line through Jamal, unless they're playing games, of course. And same as Bud Crawford. Canelo himself came out late last week and said he's not considering Bud Crawford because if he beats him, he'll get the same criticism that he got fighting Jamal Charlo, who came up from 154. So what would the criticism be like if he fought someone coming up from 147, who previously come up from 135 and 140? So I'm not really against that for Canelo. If I was Canelo, I would probably say to Bud Crawford, right, come up to maybe not even 168, but at least come up to 160, have a fight against someone meaningful, and then we can talk. Because then you get a few people sort of talking about it at the moment, about that fight. So I agree with Canelo in that instance, saying I'm not going to consider Bud because I can't win. So what have we got there? Only legit 160 fought in the past 3 fights is Ryder. Yeah, you're right. Munguia did KO him, Zaki. But look, end of the day, Ryder had earned his shot at Canelo. I think Canelo over the last few years with the wins over the Smith brothers and Billy Joe Saunders especially, I thought was an underrated win as well. I just don't think, apart from the Benavides situation, he could knock Canelo. I just think he's fought and beat everyone, and he almost falls in the Floyd Mayweather category for me. Doesn't matter who he fights, he just gets criticism after criticism after criticism, and I think it's just unwarranted. This is a great, all-time great, first ballot Hall of Fame fighter, if you ask me. But thanks for joining in the show, Zaki. Really great to have you along, mate. Any other comments there? Make sure you let us know. What do we got there? Swifty sucks. Pink rules. Seriously, pump up some Metallica for God's sake. I'm with you, Kyle. I can't wait till later in the year. Apparently Metallica's coming, and the mighty Pearl Jam, my favourite band of all time. I've seen them many, many, many times. Can't wait for Pearl Jam. As long as they don't play too much of the new stuff. I'm really a 90s Pearl Jam fan. But either way, I love them. My all-time favourite band. I did see Metallica once, Kyle, and they're a little bit disappointing if you ask me. You go and watch a Pearl Jam concert, for instance, or a Kiss concert, and they just give you your heart and soul. When I went to see Metallica, they pretty much came out, played the set list and took off. There wasn't really a lot of oomph in their performance. But having said that, I have heard like from other fans all over the world, of course, that they are one of the best live acts ever in history. But for me that night, they were a bit flat. Whereas Pearl Jam, I've seen probably about a dozen times, and every single show is better than the last. And Pink put on a great performance as well. Really, really good concert. All right, good afternoon all. Okay, I'm not sure where you're from, Mark. It is about 8 o'clock here in Australia, but if it's afternoon where you are, good afternoon to you, mate. Bill Hack, how are you, mate? The pride of Tassie down there. I was let down that Tim took low blow at Michael. Tim should back a fellow Aussie. Maybe Tim looks at Michael as a threat. If not, play nice. Yeah, he couldn't help himself, could he, Bill? Look, I don't think he really has to back his fellow Aussie. Remember, this is not a team sport, Bill. It's an individual sport. They've had their differences. Michael said some pretty ordinary things about Tim, so I sort of get that Tim's going to have a little bit of a shot back if he gets the opportunity. I don't think he sees Michael as a threat, but in that instance, I'm with you, Bill. Even if he thinks what he said, maybe all he had to do was say, "Oh, well, I'm just worrying about my fight. All the best to him, but I'm just worrying about the Keith Thurman fight myself," and that probably would have been enough. But he couldn't resist. I actually thought it was pretty funny, to be honest. But I'm with you, mate. Yeah. But as far as supporting the Aussies, but look, Tim, I'm not surprised that Tim hasn't given Michael any like airtime at all. All right. Oh, okay. And my wife Tara just said Kiss suck balls. Come on. That's not the case. Kiss is one of the best concerts of all time. All right. Kyle, great card coming up. Lomachenko and Kambosos, Opalu and Goodall. Yep. Who's Goodall? Joseph Goodall, is he? Okay, I didn't know. Is that Django he's fighting? Johnson Hughes, yep, good. Maloney, Gaballo, but who is Andrew Maloney's opponent? Better be a title eliminator. Well, I just heard on the grapevine, Kyle, that it might only just be a 8-rounder just to keep him busy. And I got no problems with that at all. Andrew, look, I think we all saw the knockout loss. I know he's had the comeback win, which is great. I've got no issues with Andrew having another 8-round tune-up on this card. You've got to remember, there's only so much money to spend on these fight cards. And Loma and Kambosos is what it's all about. Maloney, Gaballo, still a world title fight. Johnson Hughes, world title fight. These take up a fair chunk of the card, fair chunk of the expenses. So I've got no dramas with Andrew. Just slotting in there nicely, getting a nice 8-rounder under his belt, and then targeting Nakatani later in the year. That's not who he fought, was it? Who was it? Nakatani. Hang on. Have I got the wrong one? Tanaka? Is he the one I'm thinking of? I'll type in his name there. Andrew Maloney. So it was Nakatani that he lost to. So Tanaka is the one he's aiming for. So, Kyle, I got no dramas with, as I said, fighting an 8-rounder and then fighting Tanaka later in the year for the WBO belt, I think it is, the super flyweight belt. So, yeah, I just don't think they'd have the rounds, because you also got to remember, Kyle, on that card, there's so many promoters with their fingers in the pie. They're all going to want the fighters on the card, and they all only have a certain amount of fighters they can get on there. So you've got obviously the two Maloneys, the top rank probably side of things. along obviously with Cambosis and Loma. You've got the girls who are with DeBella, and then you'll have others that'll have their fingers in the pie as well. So, but yeah, as I said, mate, I actually welcome just to put Andrew Maloney in there with a nice solid 8-rounder, and then target Tanaka later in the year. Hang on, we're talking bands here, are we? Metallica, AC/DC, mate, nothing better. Well, Big J, I've got to say, AC/DC for me is still the greatest Australian band of all time, if not in the top 2 or 3 international acts of all time. I'm not saying about your favourite band out there, guys. Before everyone jumps on me, oh my God, what about the Rolling Stones and the Beatles? I get that. I'm not talking about that. Not talking about who your favorite. It's a bit like the Manny Pacquiao Floyd Mayweather thing. Take the emotion out of it, or who's your favourite. Just look at the facts. And for me, AC/DC in the industry for 50 years, just pumping out hit after hit after hit after hit, one after the other over the years. For me, in the top 2 or 3 of all time, no matter what band it is. And they're not my absolute favourite band. Pearl Jam is, but for me, AC/DC, top 2 or 3. What do you think? Actually, don't tell me what you think, because we're talking boxing. All right, what have we got there? Zaki. All right, hang on. We've got another comment there. Mark. I was surprised at that, Bill Hack. Tim is usually very respectful. Must be some bad blood there. Well, it was in a podcast situation there too, Mark. So I think he was talking to, was he talking to George Rose, I think, on the No Limit podcast. So maybe he felt a little bit more relaxed. Tell me if I'm wrong, by the way, but if that wasn't the podcast I'm talking about, but I think maybe being a little bit more relaxed with George and a bit more at home and just relaxing on the couch. I think he probably, in hindsight, maybe wouldn't have said that, especially when you've seen his other interviews this week. I know he's done one with Fight Hype that I saw and a couple others that he's probably been a bit more level and measured about it. I just think he was caught in a little bit of in a spot at that stage. And as I said, I think he was a bit too relaxed and probably just said what he was thinking, maybe not what was probably the right thing to say. So, but he is very respectful, Mark. Take it from me. He's a very respectful guy, and I just don't think he could resist the dig. Zaki, UFC, Robert Whittaker, I think he's Australian. Such a beast. If you saw that fight, was on co-main against Costa. That was his name. Yeah, look, as I said earlier, Zaki, I thought he fought a really, really smart fight, Robert Whittaker. That Costa was such a big guy. Just, as I said, like I'm not sure again what the weight was. It 175. I got no doubt he would have been 200. I reckon by the time he got in the ring, he was a big dude. Robert versus Yoel Romero fights were wars. Yeah, no, I didn't see any of those. Zaki, I'm not the biggest UFC fan, but when the Aussies are on, I'll always tune in. Hang on, one more for the band situation as I get my camera right again. Keeps zoning out. All right. Sorry, Big J, you're pumping up Pink. I can't defend that. That being said, Metallica is still superior to AC/DC. You got to preempt that too, Kyle, in my opinion. Because if you don't, as I said at the start of the show, what happens so often is, that's fact, end of story, full stop, exclamation mark, no reply. That seems to be the social media rules these days. I always say, in my opinion. All right, Zaki. Wrestling is the best foundation for MMA, but striking is definitely sound. Well, Zaki, as I said at the start, mate, we're talking the UFC. You look at the trend lately. They're not hitting the deck. They might do it in the prelim fights, but in the world title fights, they're all stand-up at the moment. We look at yesterday, Whittaker and Costa didn't hit the deck once. And Volk not only went a round and a half, of course, but Volk and the Spaniard didn't hit the deck either. So it seems to be the trend. And Sean Strickland, his fight, the one he lost to the South African, and then the one against Adesanya, whatever his name was. I don't think they hit the deck in that fight either. For that fight. So, yeah, is it a new trend? Starting to think, well, maybe boxing is a pretty effective martial art. Coach Mr. B, how are you, mate? Welcome to the show. Robert Whittaker stand-up coach Justin used to spend a lot of time in the gym with Billy Hussein and the Husseins. Well, there you go, mate. That's Jamie, I think it is. 100%. That explains a lot. That you could see yesterday, he was poised, he was balanced. Because it's the thing, and you probably back me up here, mate. If you watch the UFC fighters, most of them have got shocking balance. They're all about, because it's about the kicks, they're all on the back foot. They're all over the shop. They don't, like, thing I've always noticed, probably with the boxing lens on, or the point of view is that I'm always looking at the way they box, and most of the time the UFC guys are off balance, shocking footwork, they don't throw their punches properly, and that's what impressed me so much about the Spaniard yesterday as well, just by his boxing skill. Straight away you could tell, as I said at the start of the show, if Volk does this, he's going to be in a lot of trouble, because this guy can fight with his fists, with his hands. But yeah, that doesn't surprise me there, Mr. B, that if that is the case. Zegmont, how are you, mate? I remember we spoke about Louis Masters getting severely outmatched numerous times by No Limit last year. Well, he's finally in a 50-50 against Hearn and Purcell in Toowoomba. Who wins? Yeah, I did see that, Zegmont. I really welcome that, because I was a little bit worried about Louis Masters' well-being, to be honest, because No Limit kept putting him in there against much bigger guys, and good guys too, not just anyone. They had some ability. So I'm actually happy he's in with Purcell. He's obviously Brendan Smith's fighter up there. I'm still going to go for Purcell, Zygmunt. I think Louis Masters can punch, but he's only small. He's a tiny heavyweight. So I'm going to stick with the hometown boy in Herman Purcell. All right. Zaki says, that's cool being a fight promoter. What was the biggest obstacle you found making fights? If both fighters really want the fight, does it usually happen? Oh, Zaki, don't get me started. Well, I did 21 promotions, and I actually promoted some of the bigger names. So I promoted Tszyu, Jai Pataya, Michael Zarafa, Jeff Horn, Isaac Hardman, Shannon O'Connell, Shanika Johnson. I think I'm just picking a few names out there. So Brock Jarvis was another one. So we've promoted a few pretty big guys in the industry. Biggest obstacle was I think it's the same with a lot of promoters. It's a good question, though, I will say. The biggest obstacle is the refusal to actively welcome 50-50 fights. Most fighters, or their teams at least, want everything in their favour, and the amount of going back and forth you have to do to get the fight over the line. Got to remember, there's not a lot of money in these smaller types of shows. So a lot of them are like, well, I want this type of opponent. I want him to have this type of record. I want him to have this type of style. I want this. I want that. That's the hardest part, because you've got to remember, most of the time, these guys are making $400 or $500 a round. Oh, and sorry, I'll go back to with the promotion. The Mahoney brothers, of course. That's who I promoted the most. Hope they're not watching, because I just forgot about them. The Mahoney brothers caught me on the hop. Promoted them about 9 or 10 times. So thanks, Tara, for reminding me. Sorry, Andrew and Jason, or Daryl, if you're watching. Of course, they were my biggest and favourite guys that I promoted. I'm sure there's some others out there, but anyway. So that's probably the biggest hurdle, Zaki, is that trying to get guys, because you got to remember that $500 a round is not a lot of money for these guys and what they go through. So it's very easy for them to pull out or refuse a fight. When you're getting paid main event money, of course, it's harder to pull out, because a lot of these guys need the money. They've got expenses to pay and teams to pay, all the rest of it. But that's probably the biggest obstacle, is the getting these guys to fight each other. And that's why a lot of promoters get criticised, because they don't have the 50-50 fights that the fans want. It's not sometimes the promoter's fault that they have their A side. They do all they can to match them up properly, but it's very, very tough. If both fighters really want the fight, does it usually happen? Yes, it does. Yep. But it's very rare, Zach, to be honest. Very, very rare to have two fighters that just want to make it happen no matter what. Aussie fighters I'm talking about. Because you've got to remember too, I'm just talking about the Australian side of things, is that they're all, let's just say when we had, Liam Paro, Stevie Sparks. All right, everyone's saying these two have got to fight. We've got to get it on. These two, they're in the same weight. But what they're doing is they're going parallel to each other. They both want to fight for world titles, so why fight each other? Doesn't make sense, really, when you think about it. Us Aussies want to see it happen, but those guys, and it's happened, they both did get big fights. So they run parallel. You'll see it with, you've probably seen a little bit with Justice Honey, Dempsey McKean, even though Dempsey McKean was a little bit more advanced than Justice Honey. You won't see those guys fight because they're on the same path. So why fight each other for nothing? Just doesn't make sense. So that's the hardest part. But if they do want to actually fight each other, it's not that hard. And as a promoter, I would pay anything they really wanted, because you're not paying international airfares, you're not paying visas, you're not paying all the expense money and all that sort of stuff, medicals, all that stuff. That's why you might pay them both an extra 5 or 10K each, really, to make the fight happen, because as I said, you don't have all those overseas expenses. Because if you fly a guy in from, say, South America, you're up for probably an extra 20 or 30 grand right there, just in airfares and medicals and food and accommodation, all that sort of stuff. So, but very rarely, to be honest with you, Zaki, does that actually happen where two good fighters, Aussies, want to fight each other without it, being a big fight on main event. So thanks for the question, mate. Good one. Can't believe I've left out the Mahoney brothers, by the way, on my list of fights that I've promoted. All right. Peter says, I heard American fighters refer to Tszyu as a nobody and Thurman will expose him as an average fighter. Am I missing something? I don't think you're missing anything there, Peter. I read those comments as well. I read those articles and I think, what are you guys watching? But you got to remember, as I said, we've been sort of nurtured on, or Tim Tszyu's been nurtured before our eyes. We've seen how good he is. Of course, the Tszyu name is like royalty here in Australia. We're in the States, like with all the fighters, you've really got to earn it double in the States to make it. They really make you earn their respect. And Tim, he's got a lot of admirers over there, but if you talk to a lot of fans over there, they're not sold on Tim just yet. And whereas Tim Thurman, he's been in those big fights, Pacquiao, Garcia, Porter, these types of fights, he has proven himself, and they see him as the A side. So I'm with you. No, you're not missing anything there, but that's just the reality. And that's what I said earlier in the show. To us over here, Tim Tszyu's a superstar, but over there, a lot of people just see him as a prospect. So this fight, hopefully, will put him on that map, and that's what I think I said last week as well, as far as what happens if Tim can't get over the line against Keith Thurman. And I really worry whether he can get back. I think he can get back career-wise and get another shot at the title, all those sorts of things. But if he can't get past Thurman, it's going to be a very long road to travel to get the American fight fans back on side. Because they're all on side now, but they're all waiting. You can see they're all waiting just to see what's going to happen. They're all curious to see whether he can duplicate what he's done in Australia over there. He's been devastating in Australia. They want to see him prove it in America. And if he can against Thurman, which I think he can, then he will be, he'll be one of the A-listers. But if he can't, it's a long road back. And I think Team Tszyu know that. And that's why I think that you'll get a great performance from him on March 30th. Mark says, no, Peter, the Yanks will find out soon enough. Yeah, you're not missing anything there, mate. Another domestic fight, Lyndon, I forgot, is Dempsey McKean, Justice Honey. Yeah, I'd love to see that too, Kyle, but we might be a little bit away from that. You got to remember too, it's Ace Boxing versus Tasman Fighters. Not sure that will happen. Again, they're on different paths, so I'm not quite sure you'll see that anytime soon. Actually, having said that, you never know. Dempsey might think he needs that type of fight to get back up there really quickly and might just want that fight. Justice, on the other hand, look, I don't know. There is a little bit of political stuff going on there, Carl, but that is a good fight if it does happen down the track. What do you reckon about, I think would be a good fight in the meantime that could be attractive, is Dempsey and Joseph Goodall. I think that would be a really good fight to see, even over Justice Honey. I reckon that would be a really competitive fight, Dempsey McKean and Joseph Goodall. I'd like to see that, and that's one fight they could probably make. What happened to the lady who beat the pants off Taylor Harris? Yeah, I think we discussed that last week, Peter. She is fighting very soon from memory. I can't remember what card it's on. Let us know, guys. She might be at the Melbourne Pavilion, I think. She's fighting down there. Taylor Harris hasn't been seen since then either, I don't think, although she does play football, of course. Zygmunt, Shannon Briggs is taking on former UFC champion Rampage Jackson in an exhibition boxing match mid-year. What are your thoughts on this? I got no dramas with it, Zygmunt. I did see that. I got no dramas with taking exhibition fights, as long as they're matched accordingly. It's a bit like when Mike Tyson fought Roy Jones Jr. Really good for the fans. Really evenly matched. I know Mike's probably the naturally bigger man, but they didn't look that too dissimilar in the ring against each other. What a fight that was. So I have no issues with it, Zygmunt. This is what I'd probably like to see. And the other thing too is, Zygmunt, is that a lot of these ex-fighters, I'm not going to call Shannon Briggs a great fighter, but he was a good fighter. A lot of these greats, we saw it with Ricky Hatton and was it Barrera that he fought? in the exhibition. I love it because these guys, a lot of them didn't maybe manage their finances as well as they could have, or they've been ripped off by promoters. And this gives them a nice, safe way to earn some good coin, but also us fans that used to love watching them fight. It keep them in our memory. And I got no drama as long as they're prepared right, health-wise, physical-wise. I got no dramas with it whatsoever. So, similar type of ages, I think, Briggs and Rampage Jackson. So if people are prepared to pay it, and it is billed as an exhibition match, and we don't get this YouTube shit pushed down our throat where we're expected to take it seriously, no dramas. So I hope we see a bit more of it. I would love to see the likes of, and that's why I like actually seeing Manny Pacquiao, not so much talking about a full-on comeback, but just talking about exhibitions. Oscar De La Hoya would be great to come back. All our champions of the past coming back and just doing exhibitions against each other. I think people would pay to see it. Big J's, Canelo fighting Jamal Charlo, Star Wars Day, so that's May the 4th. If so, completely ducking David Benavides. Yeah, look, it's hard. I think someone actually might have asked that earlier in the show, Big J, and I'm not quite sure I answered it. But, yeah, look, it's pretty hard to defend, I must say. I've always been a massive Canelo fan and really admired him and always backed him with whoever he was fighting at what particular stage of his career. But I've got to say, mate, not fighting David Benavides. Look, actually, it's not necessarily fighting David Benavides. It's the fact that if he does fight Charlo, that's the issue. If he foregoes Benavides to fight Charlo, I've got a massive issue with that. If it was to fight Crawford, even though it's a tough one to sort of get your head around, I don't mind it because he's the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the world and wants to come to 168 to fight Canelo. I haven't got really an issue with it. It's probably no different than what we've seen with Kell Brook going up to fight Triple G at middleweight. We saw Amir Khan do it against Canelo. We've seen it in the past. Sugar Ray going from welterweight to middleweight. I don't have an issue with the guys fighting someone, jumping a couple of divisions to fight them. But in this instance with Charlo, to fight Benavides or to forego David Benavides for Charlo, yeah, it's a hard one. And even on that, I mean, if it was fighting Morrell or it was fighting Munguia, you'll probably think, okay, yep, we might get Benavides in September. I still think we will, by the way. I think that's the fight he'll have in September is Benavides. I just think Canelo, I'm going to cross the fingers and say I hope rather than expect that he will fight Benavides in September because everything for him is about timing. And I just think that will be the fight to make then. Because really, I don't know, is it going to be, although it could be Munguia, who knows? What do we think about the American thing they've said? It's going to be an American. And then you've got Crawford saying he's been ruled out. And you've got Charlo saying he's had no contact with anyone. So who is the American? Is David Benavides, does he constitute an American? Obviously born in America, but he has Mexican heritage, of course. So Munguia, that puts a line through him. So who is the American that he's supposed to fight? If it's not Charlo or Crawford, has to be maybe Benavides, doesn't it? But apparently they've had no word either because his manager, Samson, what's his last name, Lukowicz or whatever it is, Samson, has come out and slammed Canelo for not taking the Benavides fight. So obviously they've had no contact with him either. So I'll be very intrigued to see who it's going to be. All right. Interesting streaming services, DAZN, Tasman, Matchroom, and 7+, Ace Boxing KO. Yep. Fight TV seems dead. Yeah, they're not really doing anything at the moment. Is it, Kyle? Could Big Time Boxing be next for Stan? I doubt it, Cole. He doesn't put on big enough shows down there. That's Brian Amatruda we're talking about. That's Big Time Boxing. They don't really see those really TV standard type of shows, I would think. Although if he got the Stan contract, you might see it change a little bit. So Brian, like a lot of promoters, has to put on economically viable shows, and that's fine. And sometimes you can't afford to pay the money needed for it to be a televised fight. So yeah, it's an interesting one. Look, I don't care who's with who, to be honest. As long as we're getting quality shows and we're able to watch them, I don't really care. So, but that's an interesting one, Kyle. What's that, Kyle? Thanks, Zachy. All right. Sam says, have you seen some interest from big names in the winner of Wilson versus Valdez? Wishing Liam all the best. I have seen some interest from big names. Yeah, well, whoever wins that fight, I think Sam gets a shot at the world title, whether it be the WBO version or one of the others. I really think that's the case. So it's big big bickies for these guys. Big stakes for these guys, Wilson and Valdez. Valdez sees Wilson as the road back because, of course, Wilson almost got the win over Navarrete. And of course, Wilson looks at Valdez like all fighters should, and that's a legend of the division, basically, or of boxing, is Oscar Valdez, 2-time world champion, and a great guy too. I've met him, and he's an absolute legend of a guy as well. So I'm really looking forward to that fight. And as I said, I think the winner gets a shot at the world title. Cole says, is it just me, or is Paulo Acuso more marketable than Goodman and Wilson? Yeah, it's probably arguably the case, Kyle. Yeah, I think he's definitely marketable. No, definitely. And that's why I'm surprised that No Limit and Paulo couldn't work something out. Now, maybe Icons Entertainment has offered something that No Limit is not prepared to offer, but he's fighting on Stan Sport when I don't think anyone's really going to pay to watch that fight. If it is it pay-per-view? I'm not even sure. Is it free for subscribers? I'm not sure. But just with everything that's going on with No Limit in the last sort of 6 to 12 months, the quality fighters like that are like gold, and I just can't believe that he would leave them. But is he more marketable than Goodman and Wilson? Probably arguably, I suppose. Well, look, Liam's a really, really good guy, but he's very introverted. Very, very introverted. So I would say, yes, Paulo Acuso is more marketable than Liam. But for Sam, well, up until the recent Mark Schlieb's dramas or circus, whatever you want to call it, at their press conference, you might say that's arguable as well, because Sam's definitely found that he was marketable. I'd like to see a bit more from that from Sam, to be honest. But either way, look, yeah, I don't know. It's a hard one to comment on, Kyle. All right. Oh, look out. Who's this? Jai McAllister. How are you, mate? There's Big J in there. I'm sure you'll have a bit of a crack at some stage, mate. All right. How has the domestic scene changed over the last 5 to 10 years in terms of media, promotions, purses, etc.? Watching some fights back over the summer, and the difference seems stark. Yeah, it has, mate. I did my first event back in 2015. So what's that? It's about 8.5 years ago now. It has changed a lot. The one thing that we have now that we didn't have back then is investment from the TV companies, and streaming services, what we didn't have back then. Now, I had a lot of my events on Fox Sports, but it was always a couple of weeks later. I would have to actually employ a production company to come and record the show. Of course, you got the commentators and all, 3, 4 cameras, whatever it might be, the whole box and dice, but Fox would never show it live. They just wouldn't. That was when I first started, and then you would get them replayed a couple of weeks later. They wouldn't pay you for it, of course, but if you gave it to them fully produced, they would put it on whenever they wanted to. So that was how it worked. Then Dean Lonigan hit the market. Of course, he had Jeff Hearn and the Duco thing and everything. He really took the whole country by storm. He then got the NBS, which is the National Boxing Series, of which I actually partnered up with Dean for 3 or 4 shows, I think it was. And they were really good shows, and we got good money to put those fights on. And then, of course, No Limit hit the scene. They got their side of things as well. And, of course, then DNL were pushed out. No Limit got the entire thing. But I think it wasn't a bad thing because there was a lot of money being thrown around. There were pay-per-view events that had to be committed to. We didn't have that in the past either. It was all just when it was, not that Tim Tszyu was around back then, but if it was a Jeff Hearn or one of those types of guys, you would get the pay-per-view just when they were around. So it might only be 1 or 2 pay-per-views a year with Aussies involved. Of course, we've got all the international events, but of course, we're just talking local boxing. But then when No Limit got really involved, then, of course, they've got to have X amount of pay-per-views per year, X amount of shows per year. So that really changed things, which means the fighters get paid a lot more now. There's more promotions, more media. You see the mainstream papers covering it now. I mean, I just get the Herald Sun in Melbourne. Every day there's regular stories about the No Limit. So they've obviously got an arrangement with them as well. So that's something we didn't have in the past either. You would literally have to beg, rob, and steal to get even a mention in the papers. Now, I used to call all those, the radio and the newspaper and all those types of things. You would never get a look in at all. They just didn't want to know about it. So that's a good thing that it's changed now, because boxing is regularly all over the papers, the radio, TV. So I think it's a good thing, and it has changed a lot, mate. I will say the biggest bit of publicity I ever got, to be honest, was the Michael Zarafa Jeff Hearn first fight in Bendigo that we promoted up there. And the reason we got national-wide exposure is because they had an issue with the ring girls, if you can believe that. And if you followed me for a while, the shows you understand where I'm getting at. The Bendigo Advertiser newspaper called, and with all this woke crap that's going on these days, got on me about our ring girls and how I was pretty much exploiting them and everything else for them doing what they loved, by the way. A lot of them were models, dancers, actresses, whatever it might have been. They were entertainers and they absolutely loved it. And this lady who had nothing better to do thought she would splash the paper with all that crap, and it got picked up nationally. And if you were at that fight, you'll probably remember that Dean, to put it up, those people had a male ring, we'll call it ring boy, ring man, and right up until the main event, he had this young guy walking around. Every time he went around, he got booed. So the poor bugger, I think he took it, in with a bit of humour, but that's how we got the most exposure. So that's how little they rated boxing, to be honest, Jai. But these days, mate, and especially, of course, even with people like yourself, with all the social media and YouTube and all that sort of stuff, it is 100%. It's amazing how quickly it's changed. I can't believe that's been 9 years or 8.5 years since I did my first show, and how much it has changed since then. For the better, I will say. Everyone's got a platform these days, and everyone's getting compensated really well for it. So yeah, I think it has changed, mate. And as I said, more so for the better. TV ringside made boxing huge when I was a kid. Boxers were household names. I can't believe that, Pete. I talk to people all the time about TV ringside. And if you're not quite familiar with it, Peter, you might be able to fill us in a bit more there. But back in the day, I think it was that every Monday night it was on TV. And it was all over the papers. There was no, let's remember, there's no TV, probably commercials. There was no news. Well, the newspapers had it on the back page, and you knew all the fighters apparently, and it was big business. And I've said to Uncle Ronnie, I'm not sure whether he's watching watching tonight, but he used to go all the time. He actually fought on a couple of the shows at Festival Hall. He'll probably get embarrassed for me saying that, but he said everyone, didn't really matter. Like, word just spread like wildfire. Everyone knew who was fighting, who the main event was, what time it was on. Everyone knew everything about it, and the joint was packed every Monday night. The TV ratings were through the roof every Monday night, but there was no social media, no nothing to cover it. Everyone just knew about it. So it's amazing how it was different back then, and it's hard for me to get my head around that you could make events like that with no, social media or whatever it was back then. But that's the way they rolled. I'll let you guys duke it out in the comments there, Big J and Jai. Don't take any shit from him, Jai. All right, Hearn sees Opetaya as a gold mine. Well, why wouldn't he, Peter? Because what's happening is he can see the long term. He's going to be a heavyweight, and there's going to be some big heavyweight fights for Jai. So, it's. I think Hearn would be sort of doing this, patting himself on the back about a great job what he's done to sign Jai up when he did. Sure, he's got options, and I know it got legal there for a while because Dean and D&L Events had options on Jai, but I think it's great. Jai Opetaya is going to end up a very, very rich man, and all the best to him if he does. And be in some massive fights. It shits me how little media attention Opetaya gets over here. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, for all, and it's not Tim Tszyu's fault, by the way, but it's all about Tim Tszyu, let's face it, over here. And even I know he got a little bit when he did win the belts. George Kambosos was sort of forgotten a little bit about as well, if you ask me. And I think he's got more cred than anyone in Australian boxing, probably since a Jeff Fennick or someone like that. Won all the belts. I know someone's going to say it wasn't a WBC, but he was awarded the WBC belt. For me, he beat the lineal champion. There was a bit of a technicality with the WBC situation. So for me, he was undisputed lightweight champion. And I think he was sort of forgotten about a little bit after the Mahoney fights. And as I said, it's not Tim's fault. His team have done a great job in marketing him, but I'm with you there, mate. Jai Opetaya deserves to be a household name in Australia. It's as simple as that. For all the publicity that Tim gets, and I know it's not always, life is not always fair, or boxing is not always fair, but Jai Opetaya is should be on that same pedestal, and he's not. So it's a bit of a shame, but I got a feeling, Mutsy, give it another 2 or 3 years, and you might be surprised at how big a name Jai is here in Australia. Because let's face it, too, in the last couple of years, fighters like Volkanovski and Whitaker and these types of guys, they weren't massive names. They are sort of now because they've got a lot more exposure on TV, radio, papers, all that sort of thing. And I've just got a feeling that we just take our time with Jai. I think he'll get there. The thing with Eddie Hearn is he's obsessed with world boxing domination, kind of like Lex Luthor with boxing. Trust me, he will want to plant his flag in Australia. Next time it might be huge. Look, I think, Kyle, it'll have to be the timing is right. There might have to be a patch of the year where, maybe Canelo's not fighting because, of course, I know he's not with Eddie Hearn now, but he has in the past fought with Eddie Hearn. If Canelo's tied up, the heavyweights are tied up, and there's maybe a 2 or 3 month, spare, vacant bit of, time in the year, you might see that, but I think he's just got too much going on, Kyle. I'd be surprised if he comes back to Australia. Maybe eventually he will, but look what he's got going on at the moment. It's just too much happening. Every week he's making some sort of announcement. But it's a good analogy you got there, or a good comparison to Lex Luthor of boxing. Paro Matthias with it falling through. Has it fallen through yet? I don't think it has, Kyle. Anyway, I might be wrong. Sky might just get a wish of fighting for that WBC title in Australia. News for that will be soon. These bloody purse bids take forever. Yeah. Yep, I think she wins that title, Kyle, and maybe it is the case, but I think the stars would have to align. As I said earlier, the only way I could sort of see it happening at the moment is if Eddie Hearn says to Mick Francis, you put on the show, put it on DAZN, I'll help fund it, whatever it might be, and let's get that fight in Australia. Or he might just put it on one of his cards overseas. But yeah, but as I said, has the Paro Matthias fight fallen through? As far as I know, it hasn't fallen through. It might have just been put on the back burner, but I don't think it's actually been ruled out just yet. I don't think either one of them have got an opponent confirmed. So until that happened, I suppose nothing's ruled out. With Ebony Bridges, can she come back? Yes, but honestly, the talent for USA and UK is thin at bantamweight. Not too fussed if she can't because she'll never fight in Australia. No, I don't think she wants to fight in Australia, to be honest, Kyle. And I think even if she did, I'm not sure the Aussie fight fans really are taken with her, to be honest. I haven't found that many fight fans in Australia that think a lot of Ebony Bridges. I know it's probably a little bit unfair. I know she probably doesn't care, to be honest. She's probably making $1 million a year. English fight fans love her. She's got an American fan base as well. But Aussies are sort of wired a little bit different, aren't we? We don't sort of like that sort of stuff. But look, end of the day, she's making a living. She's a big name overseas, so I don't think she'd probably give a shit what Australians think about her anyway, Kyle. All right, there you go. Paro Matthias fight is off, according to a Matchroom official. All right, well, if that's the case. But as I said, mate, I never rule anything out until an opponent's actually named. But you never know. All right, geez, we've been a very, very quick show tonight, guys. It's I didn't realise we've been going 12 minutes over schedule. We may as well keep going to 9 o'clock, eh? All right. Andy says on Canelo, 100% on Canelo there. Only legit 168 fought since Undisputed is actually Ryder. That's exactly why Benavides should get his shot, despite the weight bully narrative. Yep. Yeah, he should 100% should get his shot, Andy. No, I have no issues with that at all. And as I said before, I didn't have an issue with the Benavides fight not happening right here and now. I've got no doubt it happens at some stage. But up until now, I hadn't had a problem with Canelo's choice of opponents. I've always thought they were a smart choice, smart business decision at that particular time of his career. But if he does fight Jamal Charlo instead of Benavides, it's going to be very, very hard to defend him, isn't it? Very, very hard. So, and I've been one of his staunch supporters, but even I don't think I could defend him if he chooses Charlo over Benavides or Morrell or Munguia. I don't think the Munguia one will happen. Munguia doesn't fight that often lately, and he only fought, a couple of weeks back or 3 weeks back, whatever it might be, so it might be a bit early for him. However, if there's a $15 million payday in it, well, maybe he might get himself together and Oscar might throw him in there, but yeah, I'm with you there, mate. But yeah, it will be tough to defend if he doesn't fight Benavides and he fights Charlo instead. Corey Lee Boxing, first time listening. Thanks, Corey. Really appreciate that, mate. The more the merrier. Corey says, Canelo, Crawford, I want to see. I'd love to see that fight as well, Corey. I know a lot of people said it's a mismatch. I, for one, think Crawford gives Canelo a very, very good fight and quite possibly beats Canelo. Just my humble opinion. I know people are going to say, he's going from 147 to 168. I don't think when you're as skilled as Crawford, that really is as important as you might get in other fighters going up. This is not Jamal Charlo going up. This is Terence Crawford, the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the world. You look at someone like Lomachenko, Pacquiao. I mean, they've gone through divisions. Mayweather's, of course, but they get by on pure ability. And I know Canelo's the bigger guy and everything else, but do you really think Crawford's going to stand there and try and fight Canelo head on? Do you really think he's going to try and fight him head to head? He's going to give Canelo great footwork, great hand speed. Whether he can take it up to 168 is another issue, of course. But yeah, I'm not going to say he's going to beat Canelo. What I'm saying is it's by far a one-sided fight. I think that's a very, very interesting fight, and I think Crawford can win the fight. All right, we've got a few more comments. What do we got there? Zaki, sorry. Bud versus Tszyu at 154 if he beats Thurman impressively, or maybe Janabek at 160, a quality caliber fight for Bud before just jumping right up to 168. But all I hear from Bud is big money fights. I think the fight for me, Zaki, is the one that makes the most sense is the Tszyu fight. The only issue is the timing. It's a little bit awkward because you got Tim fighting March 30th. So he's probably not going to want to fight for another maybe 4 months, maybe worst case late June, early July. So although Crawford fought in July last year, I was just going to say that maybe Crawford wants a fight locked in soon. It's been, nearly 8 months since he's been out of the ring. Maybe he wants something soon. And the timing of the Tszyu-Thurman fight doesn't sort of suit that. But Tim, if Bud said, okay, we're going to fight in May or June, I think Tim, if he doesn't get too banged up in the Thurman fight, will probably take that fight. But either way, I think Bud Tszyu is the fight, Zachy. I think that fight will 100% happen. I think that Bud sees Tszyu as the new top dog of 154, and I think he wants that fight. I don't think he'll want to fight Janabek. That's a dangerous fight for Crawford, and it's a bit like the Boots Ennis fight. Very, very dangerous fight. Is it really worth the risk at his age and stage of his career to have those risky fights? He doesn't get a big payday against Janabek, just like he doesn't get a big payday against Boots Ennis. So I'm totally with Bud for being nearly 36 years of age, just wanting the big fights. And that's why I've got no issue with the Canelo fight. Get in there and earn his 15 or 20 million bucks. Good luck to him. He's earned it. So, but I would think, well, maybe a scenario here with Zaki is that it's Bud and Tszyu, and if he beats Tszyu and Canelo's tied up for the next 12 months, maybe that's the fight he maybe looks at as Tszyu and then Canelo after that, and then he's done with boxing. The timing sort of works out when you look at it. That if it's Bud and Tszyu in, say, June or July, Canelo fights hopefully Benavides in September. Whether or not he gets past that is another thing. And then they fight in May 2025. That does make some sense. But anyway, it's might be a little bit of wishful thinking. Andy says, DB, so Benavides still my first preference for Canelo, but Bud versus Bud or Munguia are quality fights as well. In my opinion, Morale too. Jamal least preferred next, to be honest. I'm not big on the Morale fight at the moment, Andy. I've got no issue with Canelo saying, mate, you've had 10 fights. Go and earn it first. I know he's an exciting talent. I know he gives Canelo a good fight, but I don't blame Canelo if he says, go and earn your stripes. I had to earn mine. Go and earn yours. Benavides, obviously, he's more than earned his shot. Bud, of course, has more than earned his shot. But Morale, I would prefer him to go and maybe fight a Caleb Plant or maybe a Charlo himself or someone like that to earn his shot. But after 10 fights, I as I said, I wouldn't blame Canelo for saying not interested. Maybe Morale and Benavides will fight if that doesn't happen with Canelo. So still some possibles out there anyway. Zaki says, I just dislike the notion that Canelo and Bud have the right to do whatever they want. You should be obligated to fight the best, and if you can't vacate the belts. Benavides wants to put food on his table. Mate, in theory, it makes all the sense in the world. Unfortunately, this is boxing, remember. Canelo and Bud, just like the previous guys, Mayweather and Pacquiao and De La Hoya and all those types of back in the day, Leonard, Duran, Hagler, Tyson, It's all on their terms. And there's a different set of unofficial rules for those guys. And I'm not totally against it, to be honest, Zachy. I'm really not. I know in black and white it should be just what you've said there. You fight the obligated best, or you're obligated to fight the best, or we strip you of the belts. It's not quite that easy with the legends. I think they earn, I know it's unofficial, which is probably why they invented the, the legend or franchise champion, whatever it might be. I just think you've sort of earned it a little bit. And Canelo 100% has earned that, just like Mayweather did, just like Pacquiao did, just like De La Hoya did. All those guys did. So you're right in theory, Zachy. And I understand Benavides wants to put food on his table. I've got a feeling he's doing okay at the moment, Zachy. he probably earns a few million per fight, but I understand. I get what you're saying. He's earned and deserves his crack. But in this sport, mate, things that should happen don't necessarily do happen. So we'll see again. We'll see what happens. All right. Robert Tyler, how you going there, mate? Thanks for joining in the show. Thanks very much for the show, mate. New bit of boxing, so I got plenty to learn. Hey, mate, never too late to join the boxing ranks. Loving the show. Best podcast going around by far. Well, thanks very much, Robert. Well, for all you watching and listening out there, no, I didn't pay Robert to say that, but no, I really appreciate that, mate. And it doesn't happen without all you guys and girls. And each week we seem to get more and more. So thanks very much for that, Robert. Really appreciate it, mate. Zachy says, that's awesome on promoting those fighters' big names. Is how you got the grey hair from dealing with stress. Yeah, mate, 100%. A lot of sleepless nights. A lot of stress, I can tell you, Zachy, and that's why the only reason I stopped promoting, by the way, is because at the time was because of COVID, and then it gave me a good chance to sit down and reevaluate what was important and what wasn't, and I can tell you my stress levels and my family and business and all that was far more important than putting up with spoiled little brats in the boxing industry. Not to say those big names weren't like that, but a lot of people in that industry were. And for the amount of time, effort, and money that I invested, it was a no-brainer in the end. But some big names there. Was, as I said, it's looking back and seeing the names we promoted. And well, here's one for you, Zach. Here's a show for everyone out there that I did to think in the context of now. On one show that we did, it was Punches in the Park something. That was the name of my shows. They were Punch at the Park because they were at Melbourne Park, where the Melbourne Tennis Centre is here in Melbourne. And on one show we had both Mahoney, so Jason and Andrew. We had Jaya Pataya, and we had Tszyu, and we had Brock Jarvis. Now in the end, Tszyu at the last minute had to pull out, but that was the bill. We still had the Mahoney brothers and Jaya Pataya and Brock Jarvis on the card, but Tszyu should have been on that card. So think of that now. So with all due respect, No Limit and all the others, eat your heart out. Maloney's, Jaya Pataya, Brock Jarvis, and Tszyu on the same card. Even the show we did in Bendigo with Tszyu headlined and Andrew Maloney co-headlined. So we had Tim and Andrew on the same card in Bendigo as well. We had some pretty big names back in the day, Zachy, I will say. And yeah, Tara can confirm that. Yes, exactly. Zachy, yeah, the grey hair there, Zachy. Yep. It is very grey. All right. Hayden Harradine, how you going there, mate? What's that? Tyson Tszyu Wood. Was that big news, I'm assuming? Would be big news. Tyson Tszyu. What a fight that'd be. Wow. Yeah, Zachy's right. You could run into David Tszyu with a semi and he wouldn't fall. Yeah, 100%. Jeez, what a fight that would have been. Tszyu and Tyson. Wow. All right, we've got a few more comments. What do we got? Bill. I know I asked a couple of months ago, but any news on Jacob NG? I missed that warrior. Nothing, Bill. I did make some inquiries about that last time you asked, and I can't believe it, but apparently he's pretty happy in retirement. I think he's had a few issues outside the ring. I won't go into them, but I think he's had some dramas, and he's happy just helping it at the gym and being in the corner and all that sort of stuff. But what a loss that'd be if he didn't fight again. Such an entertainer, really great young kid. I remember being in the corner with Gage Island in Queensland when he went up there to defend his Australian title against Jacob NG, and Jacob NG was just on fire that night. I remember thinking, geez, this kid's got some talent, really got some ability. Of course, that fight with Hunter Ione. Wow, what a fight that was. I can't believe he got up from that shot. Look, I thought he was dead. He got hit that hard. But yeah, I'm with you, Bill. It would be a massive loss if he didn't come back because he's such a great young talent. The Billy Dibb fight, of course, he got disqualified in that. But geez, I would hope that doesn't derail him enough that he doesn't come back. I really do because he's a really good young talent. Bill Peter says, I'm in my 60s and boxing was front page with fighters. Who was it like, mate? What do we got there? Festival Hall was massive. I went with my dad, and VFL footballs were everywhere at the fights. It was brilliant. Yeah, all the people I've spoken to, Peter, that used to go there, absolutely love it. They absolutely love it, or did love it, of course. And I know they tried. I think Barry Michael might have tried to bring it back, but wasn't as successful. Things have changed. Things have changed. I know Festival Hall is back as a boxing destination venue, apparently. So let's hope that maybe grows some legs and we get some bigger shows there. I mean, who can forget some of the big fights there? I mean, in my sort of time watching boxing, I remember it was Lester Ellis and Barry Michael and these types of guys. Some great fights. So, and Peter, yeah, you're right. Opetaia is boxing's biggest star for those that know the sport. Yeah, internationally, I would think, Peter, for sure. The courage Jai showed to fight on that double with that double broken jaw is without a doubt incredible. Definitely deserves more light, 100%. All right, what do we got there? Andy, super disappointed for Paro fight. If it's off, I won't be surprised if and when Matthias fights Devon Ryan winner in unification since now signed with Eddie in the zone. Look, the thing that makes sense to me, Andy, is that you'd have Devon and Ryan, of course, which are signed, and you'd have Matthias and Paro, and the winners would fight. That makes more sense to me. Lopez is off the table at the moment. And who's got the other belt? Was WBC is Devon, WBO, Matthias is IBF, WBO is Lopez, WBA is Rolly Romero, and he's got a fight coming up as well. So it makes sense, especially if they're all under the same banner. Devon and Ryan, Matthias and Liam, and the two winners fight later in the year. That is the fight that makes sense. Matchroom has 6 fighters: Nicholson, Honey, Opetaia, Bridges, McKean, and Paro. So McKean versus Honey is definitely an option, although Opetaia and Honey are still Tasman fighters as well. Yeah, good call. Yeah, I keep forgetting that, isn't it? Yeah, you're right. Opetaia and Honey are Tasman fighters, but they're also with Matchroom. So, yes, you are right. But, yeah, I don't know. There's still lots of politics involved, Kyle. There's too much to go into now, but there's a lot of politics at play, and will it happen? I'm not sure it does. Not yet, anyway. What do we got there? David Jenkins. How you going there, mate? One of the few times I get onto the show live. I never miss it, but it's generally after the event on YouTube. I'll take this opportunity live to say thanks to the best boxing show out there. Oh, thanks, David. Geez, we've got a few new ones out there at the moment. No, that's really great, David, and I'm really happy. This is why I started the show in the first place. For me, it's all about not necessarily the amount of viewers that you have. I know a lot of social media sites, it's all about the number of views and subscribers, all that sort of stuff. I was more about the content rather than the amount that you have. A lot of people have 10,000 subscribers and get 500 views. So I'd rather have 900 subscribers and have 900 views. That's what I'm about, mate. But no, I do really appreciate it. And everyone else out there that is either just new to the show or has been with us for a while. So thanks again, guys. Look out, we've got someone we haven't heard from tonight. It's Carl. G'day, Lynden. Did you hear the WO will strip him of the belts if he loses? Yes, that was earlier in the episode, the show, Carl, and I'm totally against it if that's the case. Got to get Opetaia to fight in Melbourne. He would be huge. Well, that was where my show was, Peter. It was at Melbourne Park, and Jai Opetaia fought Virgil Hill's guy, the American. It was. I can't remember his name. He come out and apparently was going to be some big star, and Jai Opetaia wiped him out in one round. Absolutely wiped the floor with him. It was great to beat Virgil Hill, by the way. And we had 1,000 people there, Peter. That's all we could get there. Think of that. 1,000 people with 2 Maloneys, Tim Tszyu, Jai Opetaia, and Brock Jarvis. How's that, eh? Ronnie Picken, how you going, mate? Great show, Lynden. Great show, great comments. Keep it going, boys. Nah, thanks, Ronnie. All right, before we go, I've got one thing I want to let you know about. Hang on, we've got another couple of comments. Hang on. Sorry, I'll get to that in a sec. Been a great show. Thanks, Tommy. Thought your views on how boxing scene has changed the last 5 to 10 years was very interesting. Glad fighters' profiles are getting bigger now. Totally different ball game these days, Tommy, and for the best, as I said. Devon and Ryan winner versus Matthias Parra winner was what I was expecting too. Definitely made some sense. All right, one last thing before I go, guys. As I said, on Thursday night, the live dream fight, all Aussie supercard on, be shown. As I said, it's all hypothetical, of course, but rather than just do a straight out dream fight, I've got, in my opinion, I think there's 7 fights on the card, and actually we'll quickly go through them before we end the night. So we're going to start with, where are we? We'll get rid of that one. All right, start with, we've got 5 male, 2 female. I'm going to quickly go through it, and then you can sort of stew on it for 3 or 4 days, and then hopefully you'll watch it live on Thursday, and we can go through who we think would win and why. First fight will be Taylor Robinson, Jasmine Parr. The girls will kick the show off with an 8-round super flyweight fight. So what do you think of that one? Peter, these are current fighters, mate. We will do past fighters down the track. I didn't even think of that at the time, but these are a current fight card. All right. Next one will be Dana Coolwell, Rocky Ogden, over 8 rounds at super featherweight. We'll call this the prelim card before the main card starts. What do you think of that one? I think that'd be a ripper. The third fight on the card will be Isaac Hardman, Joel Camilleri in an 8-round middleweight grudge match. Then we're onto the main card. The girls kick it off again. We've got Ebony Bridges, Shanika Johnson over 10 rounds at bantamweight. Then we go to Jason Maloney, Sam Goodman, 10 rounds at super bantamweight. The co-main, George Kambosos Jr., Liam Wilson at lightweight. And then no surprise, what would be the biggest all-Aussie fight, of course, is Tim Tszyu, Michael Zarafa. Let's just say Michael wins that WBA belt, and we've got a 12-round WBA middleweight title fight between the two. So what do you think about those fights? So we're going to go through them live on Thursday night. The card, we're going to say, is at Marvel Stadium in Melbourne in front of 50,000 people. And the fighters are getting very, very well paid. We're going to kick the card off at 5 o'clock. Not on Thursday, of course, but on the night as the prelims and then into the main event. So, and because we've had so many, like before, I think you had Fennick and Michael there. I think after this one, we might do an all-time one where we can have Fennick versus Barry Michael or Lester Ellis. I think it'd be a great one as well. Johnny Famishine, Lionel Rose. We might do that as well after that, and then we might do an international version also. So look, always just trying to keep it fresh. Keep it a little bit different to what everyone else is doing out there. I think there's a lot of social media channels that pretty much do the same sort of thing. We're just trying to keep it interesting and have more fan involvement as well. So, guys, that will do it for this week's episode. Again, really appreciate everyone that joins in every week. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, all that sort of stuff. And hopefully we'll see you on Thursday night at 7 for the big All-Aussie Dream Fight Supercard. Thanks, guys. See you then.